my house, there are two push factors. First, my mother creates delicate wood carvings. Secondly, my dog, who literally chews on everything. And one day, my mother decided it would be a great idea to take her wood carving out of her display case and out to the world where everybody can see them. And when my dog realized this, my dog took the chance and immediately chewed the heck out of that thing. And when my mother realized this, she deeply regretted her choice. So when asked the question, will the Chinese government come to regret easing its COVID-19 policies, I can only answer by saying yes. First, we'll take a look how the rise in cases was a direct cause of the easement of policies. Secondly, we'll look at how this has led to an overwhelming hospitals. Lastly, we'll look at how this overall easement of policies has led to chaos within the Chinese community. Now, let's look at my first year analysis, where we can see that the direct cause of rising cases in China are because of the easement of policies by the Chinese government. Now, we can look to Axios in December 11th of 2022, where they explain that China is battling its rising COVID-19 cases after each easing precautions by saying that, quote, some Chinese cities, including Beijing, are facing outbreaks which are forcing some businesses to close due to infected workers. Now, when we are seeing that infected workers, because of easement of policies, are having businesses being closed, this is a terrible thing that's happening, because if these businesses are closing, what are these people going to do? These people need to have these businesses open to continue their livelihood. Now, they further explain by saying the surging cases come after China began paring down its zero COVID policy last week following its nationwide protests. Now, we can see that from this quote that this rising cases is a direct cause of the easement of policies. We can look to PBS on December of 27th of 2022, where they explain that COVID is rapidly spreading in China because of easement of restriction of quarantine rules. Now, when we're seeing that when China eased its quarantine rules and it rose to a rapid spreading COVID, we can expect more cases to come and more businesses to close in the future. Now, this leads me into my second area of analysis, where we can see that these increasing cases are leading to overwhelming hospitals within China. Now, we can look to Reuters in December 26th of 2022, where they say that China's COVID cases are overwhelming hospitals. In this article, they say patients are arriving at his hospital in ever-increasing numbers, and almost all are elderly, and many are very unwell with COVID. Now, we're seeing that many of these elderly patients are being hospitalized because of COVID. And in the article, I saw this image of these elderly patients being nearly shoulder to shoulder in these hospitals, which is a terrible thing. This is going to lead to increasing cases, and they're just going to have to turn down many other patients who are coming to these hospitals to get treatment. Now, we can look to Axios on January of 2023, where they say that, quote, COVID patients are overwhelming Chinese hospital. In the article, they further by saying that an enormous wave of COVID infections is straining China's medical facilities. Now, when these medical facilities are being strained because of COVID-19 cases, we can expect these expect a situation in these Chinese medical facilities to get even worse when they're being strained and they're being stressed with these enormous amount of patients. And let's not forget that they're having to turn away patients who are coming to these hospitals to get treatment. Now, let's move to a third area analysis, where we can see that this has led to an overall increase of chaos and risk in the Chinese community. We can look to science.org on January 3rd of 2022, where they say that, quote, most scientists believe that China's decision to end its COVID-19 policies have been long overdue. But they have a new worry, that the country is collecting and sharing far too little information about the rough transition to a new coexistence with COVID. Now, when these scientists are pointing out specifically that they are sharing far too little information, we must realize that the war of COVID is a war with information. We must realize that the sharing of information is what is helping these institutions create these vaccines and being able to defeat COVID. Without sharing of information from institution to institution, we need to go back to China's original COVID-19 policies. So even if there is little information being shared, there are still people not going out, getting infected, and spreading rapidly. Now we can look to CBS News on December 9th of 2022, where they explain that China's strict zero COVID policies may be gone, but it's been replaced by chaos and confusion and risk. Now, in this article, they continue by saying that, quote, the city of 21 million people have no coherent plan in defeating COVID-19. Now, when we can see that the city of 21 million people have no coherent plan in defeating COVID-19, we must realize that we need to go back to China's original policy with strict COVID-19 policies, even if these people aren't going to be grumpy. But we must realize with easement of policies, we're going to see increase in COVID cases, rapidly spreading COVID-19 cases, and overwhelmed hospitals with chaos just on top of all of that. Now, today we explore my three main areas of analysis and answering the question of will the Chinese government come to regret easing its COVID-19 policies. I answered by saying yes, the Chinese government will regret the easement of policies in China. First, we looked at how the easement of policies directly led to increase in cases. Secondly, we saw that these increasing cases led to overwhelming hospitals. Lastly, we looked at how on top of all of that, we are seeing an increase in chaos and risk in China. Hopefully, China will realize its mistakes just like my mother and go back to its original policies.